because you always have to keep in mind, what is the impact if that sub ultimately can't perform and falls down on the job and doesn't do it? I don't know where the material costs are ultimately going to be.
Very true. Do you think, and again, this is an opinion, we're not holding to it. I'm actually happy you're not attorneys. You're so that's good, right?
Yeah, so let me be clear.
Attorneys never have an opinion, right? They don't have an opinion, But I mean, if you're saying confirm that information, because to me, this is really important for the small person doing this, because we all have to submit certified payroll reports. Do you think that just getting it from the Department of Labor's website is adequate and sufficient?
Maybe, and I'm sure that's not the answer you want, but I mean,
we can't get government. I mean, it's just really hard for us to get the government people on the phone and respond.
It absolutely is. So you got to first do the research yourself and see where you are, and then see what does the language of the contract say. If ultimately you have an issue that you're not sure, are they flaggers? Are they crossing guards? Then you got to bring it to someone's attention. You really want to get that ultimately flushed out, because you want to make sure that that classification issue is addressed, especially when you look at it on a small business. On a small business, smaller contract, do you have individuals that are potentially doing multiple trades? So during the course of the day, are they doing work that fits into different public rate schedules? And how do you ultimately, deal with that? So it's important to have that information, try to get it clarified prior to the bidding, because you're ultimately, as we all know, when you're bidding and your contract's there and it's in place, those type of mistakes, the individual who won the contract could be bearing the burden of that.
Right. That's very true. What happens in the case where I'm a contractor, I've asked for certified payroll for my subcontractors who did the work, and they were not able to give me the certified payrolls?
So the issue is, if they don't give them to you, then you look at it as to why can't you get them? Because now one of the important parts that we have is that the Wage Theft Prevention Act. And what does that mean to contractors? Where you're dealing on these payrolls, as to what level of verification. So if you have to have those, if you're not getting them, then you got to follow up as to, why you're not getting them. And that may not be the subcontractor that you're going to want to use. That, and then part of it is, we just coming out of the pandemic, the construction side, we had jobs starting, jobs closing down, increased labor cost, increased material costs. Are the subs that you had been using historically financially as sound as they were 2 or 3 years ago when you were dealing with them, just because of the changes in the economy? What's going on post the pandemic, coming as we come out of it, with labor costs, material costs, and what happened during that period of time? Were they working on projects that got shut down, and now therefore cash flow problems or issues are arising that are out there?
Well, I can tell you this, and I like it from a high level, but when you're down here where we're at, we already have there's so many fewer suppliers and contractors to choose from, right? I mean, we just don't have a whole lot of choices and options. I mean, I received an email just before we jumped on with a company that won a project here in my area, South Florida. They can't find subcontractors, and so that is becoming more and more the norm. Is just the lack of finding subcontractors that can actually do the work. And then you want me to throw out the people that may not be as strong as they've been in the past?
Well, I want you to definitely be aware of it.
Okay.
You have a subcontractor working for you, and they fall down on the job, whether it's cash flow, whether it's a technical issue, whether it's a labor force issue. They can't ultimately get the labor. They can't get materials. So let's talk about a two-party check or something like that to ultimately be able to help them on the material side of it. But, because you always have to keep in mind, what is the impact if that sub ultimately can't perform and falls down on the job and doesn't do it? You're either now going to self-perform it, and it may be a trade that you usually don't self-perform, or you're bringing someone else in, and that's often not the most efficient way to do it when a contract's halfway through on a subcontract and you got to bring in another business to finish that part of the contract for you.
Okay. No,
And you're tied to a contract price, and you had a subcontract at X dollars, and now all of a sudden you're at X plus 30%. And that 30% you're going to be absorbing as the prime contractor on that.
that's actually brings me to another question that I thought about. Based on your recent experiences with, particularly, let's talk about the escalation in cost. Have you seen any changes to the way that the government is writing the language in terms of how we're handling that issue? Because I think just asking the prime to absorb it is not a remedy for it's just not a remedy that's going to go over well for anyone.
That's not a good starting point. And you're not negotiating from a position of strength by
Right, right.
and so we talk about having that level playing field. Now, part of it is the importance of being able to do that and being able to negotiate that fair price. But we are seeing you had contracts that were let in 20 that we're working on in 21 or 22, or were bid, and you're putting your bid documents together at the end of 20, and now you're getting it because of a host of reasons. You're actually in the field working in 22 at the difference of cost. What are the your labor and material costs? So in dealing with that and having those conversations, but you absolutely have very little area to go in. So what we are seeing right now is on the bidding side of it. What is we're seeing right now? Here's my price. It's good for 30 days. It's a very narrow point of time as to where you are. And if it's, there has to be changes, then we're gonna have to talk about it, but I can only hold my price. I've had some on the contracts right now where they're saying I can hold for 15 days. I don't know where the material costs are ultimately gonna be.
Very true.
So we're seeing that, we're doing the outreach on a large government funded project right now. Yesterday, we did more than 100 calls to women and minority owned businesses, driving some attention to the project and letting people know about the opportunities that are there. One of the things that's really interesting is capacity. They just often there's just not enough capacity right now to meet it. So how do we work with and grow and build the capacity of these firms so that they can do larger, more complex work?